Council. Joseph, you didn't feel like you got to talk about it. It's your turn. Let's hear it.
All right. Now, I wrote down some comments because this is a complicated issue, and I wanted to get my whole thoughts out there. Hopefully, maybe someday I'll be able to think on my feet, but we're not there yet. So anyway, where to start? Okay, I've never used it. I've never even experimented with it. But I've known plenty of people that did use it or do use it, and all have been average, everyday types of people. My interest in seeing this move forward stems from from a couple of things, primarily my libertarian leanings. This is America, and law-abiding adults shouldn't have to have Big Brother looking over their shoulders. It's stunning that something like cannabis was ever made illegal in the first place, and it was based on lies and propaganda, which led to near hysteria in the decades that followed. And I'm sure that's one of the reasons why I never had any interest in it. Nobody wanted to do 99 to life, which was in some video I saw when I was 8. Now, this used to be a very easy slam dunk no issue, but those days are over. I posted this topic on social media and asked for comments in several popular Facebook groups. There was very little input, next to no input. Now, I saw a post of my fellow council member that also asked for input, and it had about 30 responses. And I'd estimate that they were at least 60-40 in favor. Now, 2.5 years ago, California and Wildomar voted to legalize cannabis for adult recreational use. Now, there's no stopping this as it becomes less and less stigmatized. The amount of fear-mongering put out by those that prefer the black market to remain intact is staggering. And if you are against well-regulated cannabis industry, by default, in my estimation, you're for the status quo, which means the black market. Now, the City Council received a handful of emails on the subject. Now, that was, I only got the last 9, so I had 6 prior. So I got the last 9 while I was up here, and I read through them. Many of them looked like form letters, that they were the same one-sentence thing, but they still broke down about 50-50. Now, one resident mentioned that the cannabis consumers he knows prefer either to have their product delivered or purchased from the black market, which is thriving for the simple reason of no taxes being charged by the black market. That's the quote. Now, here's my thought on that. I make my own pizzas. That doesn't mean that a pizzeria would fail because some people make their own or find a different way to get their pizza. A different emailer said, as a former resident of Wildomar, yet still a resident of Southwest Riverside County, I find I am still a frequent visitor and shopper in your city. I strongly support the regulation of retail marijuana in Wildomar. Please be a leader in Southwest Rivco and allow for safe, regulated access to what has already been made legal in California. And here's an excerpt from a longer email from another resident of Wildomar. It says, I am a resident of Wildomar, having lived here for 36 plus years, not that that matters. I'm not in favor of unlicensed illegal dispensaries in our town, but I am in favor of fully licensed legal facilities that benefit us tax-wise and are certified clean green with easily available verifiable labs to prove potency and being GMO insecticide free. I'm not as concerned with those who use recreationally as I am with those who have genuine medical necessity, though both should be protected from unscrupulous dealers who might deceive their customers, providing product that is not as advertised. Now, here was an email in opposition. I do not want to see this type of business in Wildomar. I moved here 17 years ago so we could enjoy a new growing community. We have good businesses here and already have enough homeless people on the streets. We do not want to draw more of them to our city. I don't see the correlation between well-regulated cannabis businesses and homelessness. Now, there was a survey done last year that asked 2 questions, and respectfully, I consider it a flawed survey on several grounds. Now, I'll try to not be too wonky here, but the survey asked if the voters would approve an additional 1 penny per dollar sales tax increase. The survey came back with 68% in favor. The measure only ended up getting 58% on the ballot. That 10-point difference equals 17% off the mark. Well, and that's well outside the usual margin of error. Then there was the second question asking about cannabis businesses in Wildomar. Now, the survey came back with 55% opposed, 42 in favor, and 4% unsure. This was asked of the same pool of registered voters. All right, now this might be where it kind of comes off the, off the rails a little bit, so hold on. So, okay, I'm sorry, but legal residents that are also non-citizens and therefore ineligible to vote, or people that choose not to vote, like let's say my mom, who is part of a religion that they don't register to vote, they still have a say in what goes on in our community outside of ballot box issues, but they weren't asked. The survey was deeply flawed. One last thought about surveys and polls. How's everyone enjoying President Hillary's time in office? Yeah, polls and surveys, yeah. Now, I'm not in favor of unlicensed, unregulated cannabis businesses in our city. If anything, I would want stringent regulations with serious consequences to any cannabis business owner that didn't take their responsibility to the city seriously. I'm against blight in the city, and the last thing I do is invite it in. If we can't come up with demanding yet realistic ordinances, then I would be a no vote. I believe such ordinances can be hammered out as they have been in many other cities in Riverside County alone, including Lake Elsinore, which we share a police department with. There are more types of cannabis businesses than just dispensaries, but dispensaries are the only type of cannabis business that was opposed in all the emails I read to the city and the various comments on social media. All right, thank you for tolerating that.
Ben?
I'll let you work this way, so Bridgette, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you were kind of in favor of Joseph's having his
thought
say,
the
so
Hillary
that was
quote
why.
perfect.
Yeah, that was interesting. Go ahead, Bridgette. We'll work this way.
So I wrote down notes, so I didn't have anything prepared. This is all from tonight, right now. It was mentioned earlier about tax dollars, so since we're going to speak about that, I hope that everyone buys their gas here, because if you buy your gas in another city, then you're helping that city. I think if you want to drive to purchase your marijuana, and I have nothing against you, recreational, medicinal, I have no problem with marijuana. I feel that those buyers are actually going to go to the closest. So even if we had a place on Clinton Keith, but you lived off Bundy, you might go to the one that's across the street in Elsinore because it's actually the closest, or has the best specials, or the cutest girls. So I don't think they'll be loyal just to Wildomar. They don't have to drive outside our city limits. There are deliveries. And if you are sick, truly sick, cancer, you cannot barely walk, delivery is an option, a very valid option, and that's probably the option you're going to take. So you do not have to drive outside at all. They will come directly to your house. I've said it before, and I think our survey proves it. Yes, 58% of residents that voted for that said Prop 64 should be legal didn't mean they actually wanted it here in the city of Wildomar. There will always be a black market. There will always be a black market. You can legalize as many as you want, and there will still be a black market.
Look at alcohol. Go ahead.
The cost, as mentioned before, we already have spent money on this. So how much more are we willing to spend on this? The survey, we did the survey, and it said that if we put the 1 cent sales tax on the ballot, it would pass, and it did. So I don't think that we could say, oh, we believe the survey for this, but we don't believe the survey when it's this, when it doesn't go the way you want. Lawsuits, there is no number. You can say Wildomar has one on the east side, one on the west side, 2, 3, 4, 10, it doesn't matter. The next one that wants to come in will sue us because there is nothing to prove that a city of 36,066 residents needs 1, 2, 4, or 10 dispensaries. It does not matter. We will have a lawsuit. So tonight we had 5 speakers, 6 total. We had 3 that were opposition, Eric, Veronica, and Greg. 4 was Gina and David, and George was neither. Just make a decision. So it's really up. It's really half and half. This is a very hot button issue. I think it's a lot for council to decide. I actually think we need to put it on the ballot in 2020 and we let the residents vote. And the ballot will also say, so if you want recreational marijuana, you want dispensaries in Wildomar, then also at what tax? And then remember, the more you tax it, the more you're going to black market because you're going to tax it so high. But I actually think it needs to go to the will of the people, and they need a vote.
Okay. Thank you. You want to go first?
No, you're on.
So I didn't prepare like Joseph did. I take notes and speak from the hip and shoot. But I would point out that initially I didn't want to add the verbiage to the survey, really for the simple fact that we kind of already had that in the November elections, right? We had Prop 64, it passed. I look at our roles as being representative of the people of Wildomar, right? So I was hesitant to want to even go down that road because I'm elected to represent and make decisions how I see fit that represent the people that elected me. And in the reality, if I make a bad decision, I won't get reelected in 2020. So from the get-go, I was opposed to that because I don't want to, what I want to avoid is the precedent of always leaning on a survey. That's not that's money, and we are elected to make decisions and go down the path that we collectively think is the right way for the city. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way to channel everybody's thinking of how I'm speaking. Realistically, it's here. It's not going anywhere, and that's something we have to accept. I've pointed this out before, and I guess for the people that have attended regular meetings, this will sound like me just repeating myself, but there's a moral argument here. I have 3 little girls. I personally think it's harder for kids. I can speak from experience in high school anyway, that it was harder to get alcohol and tobacco than it was to get marijuana, and that's for the simple reason that it was regulated. I think that's just a cold hard fact. You're always going to have those parents that are going to go buy, or those kids that have older friends that are going to buy their alcohol and tobacco. I can't obviously get rid of that, but I think you severely diminish that happening when you have regulations and ordinances and laws in place. That's how to me, there's a moral argument there, and I understand what I'm saying. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So social norms are changing. Pop-ups are going to happen. The pop-up stores, regardless if we legalize it or not, they're going to come. Gina pointed out they came in 2010 for the first time. Probably before that when we weren't incorporated, right? They've been a thing, and they're going to continue to be a thing. And our police officers are going to have to deal with them regardless. If it's legal or not, or if we allow dispensaries, we're going to have to deal with it. That's just a matter of fact. So the money's going to come out of our coffers regardless. So there's that point of thinking also. I look at this as being very similar to prohibition. You have a lot of straw man arguments that you did back in the 30s when you were going to make alcohol legal again. The concerns back then, you're going to have people walking around the streets drunk all the time. Okay. Is it true? Yeah, you have those ones and twosies. You have those guys that just can't control themselves, and anything in moderation is okay, right? But when it's overutilized, that's when it becomes an issue with anything, food, whatever. I would venture to say that more often than not, we don't have people or drunks stumbling down the road. Those are just straw man type arguments. I have a Joseph feeling with this. The libertarian piece of me wants to say, like, laissez-faire, let it be. Let the individual do what they want to do. Now, those all sound like I'm in favor for it, right? But what I'm in favor of is something responsible. There's a money dilemma. It's an all-cash business right now. It's all cash. California has all these things that sounded really good, but it's not the case. So whatever we do, we're dealing with it. We're dealing cash. And whatever we decide to do, if we're in favor, I don't want it to cost us money. I would feel very guilty spending a bunch of money to do something when I can't get Harvest Way East fixed or Bundy Canyon fixed. And I just drove Harvest Way East the other day, and it's a terrible road. It's worse than it's ever been.
Not our road, though.
I understand. I know it's not our road, but still it's a terrible road. And Bundy Canyon is not much better. That's where I stand with it. So going forward, what I would like to see happen, or my direction to staff, would be something along the lines of, I want to proceed with this, I'd like to look at Elsinore. I don't think taxing it is the way to go. I think you're right, Bridgette. You tax it and you're going to have a black market, right? And all the other pieces of the argument don't fall into place when you overtax something, because then there's no incentive for businesses to be businesses. I don't think you have bootleggers really anymore, maybe in the South, but I can tell you I don't really know that many people that make alcohol on their own, besides like the craft beer stuff. So the black market will subside at some point. I mean, we're in the infancy stages of this. I know the recreational piece is 2 years old. The medicinal piece is, let's say, 8 years old. That's still relatively young when you're looking at the grand scheme of things. So I think the black market will go away at some point. I would recommend to staff that we do something. We look at Elsinore's, we go down the road of, we're going to do this. What is the most responsible way to do it? I would look at it probably being something like we charge per square foot. Any ordinance we put in place would have to stipulate you have to have security. You have to provide your own security. You have to provide cameras. I would want it to be the damn Apple Store of dispensaries. Okay. That's just, that's how I feel about it. And that's in our purview to do, right? We can write those ordinances to be clear and concise so we don't have these pop-up, shady-looking, blacked-out, tinted window stores, right? That kind of attract that crowd anyway. That's how I feel about it. So that would be my direction, and I'll let the rest of you guys finish your comments. We can kind of go from there. But
All right. Well, I'm glad we brought this back. I think it's time. As I look at the cities and the county around us, I see that they're making progress towards some sort of an ordinance. The county's actually had an ordinance in effect, and they've been collecting permits and working permits through the process, and so has Elsinore. And I actually tapped a few council members in Elsinore, or a couple of council members just recently, just to check and see how it's going in their city. And surprisingly, they feel like it's moving along very well, and they feel like it hasn't been the big issue that they thought it might be. And in fact, even the two detractors on their council sort of have come back and actually made some recommendations as a subcommittee that went beyond what the original three members that were for it thought they would go with. So I feel like this is something that as we move down this path, it's not the big bad apple that we're afraid of, and it's something that we ought to not necessarily embrace, because I think embracing it would have done this 4 years ago, but at least move forward in a direction that's similar to our neighbor and our neighbor around us, the county, and at least be looking at this. I tend to disagree a little bit with the taxation part, just because we do have to recover the cost of this to our city, and there is going to be a cost. There will still be the bad apples popping up. There will still be the side of this that's not the happy part, the part that will have to, even the operator that might be operating with us and working alongside us might change someday.
I like Elsinore's.
So Elsinore's, and my understanding of the counties both is that it's based on the fact that if you have to go in and get a permit and it's going to be by square feet, you're going to pay a fee. And I think that's the right way to do it, not a sales tax, but necessarily just a permit fee.
Oh, I agree with you there. Okay, yeah. We're on the same page there.
So, I feel that we do need to move forward. I was talking with Elsinore group again, and they mentioned the fact that they did a subcommittee. I think it'd be wise for us to do that too, that two of our members could jump into this and try and delve through all the different details and then bring that back to council. It might take 1 or 2 tries. It's not an easy thing to get done. I recognize that, but I think it's time we at least start moving the direction that is as cautiously as we can, but to continue moving forward. And I recognize it's not something that's going to happen overnight. So that's where I'm at. And so, Marsha?
Well, I'm in a little bit different spot. I agree that 58% of the people voted to legalize marijuana in the state of California, and I was one of those people. I don't use marijuana. I really don't care if you do or who does, or if it's for medical reasons, whatever. I don't think the black market will ever go away. The taxes are already so high with the state and getting permits through the state, and then you get a permit and pay a license fee, and we've spent so much money. A survey and with a company that you think is right and fair, and they come up with these numbers of 60% in my district that doesn't want anything dispensary, doesn't want it growing here, doesn't want even a lab here to check to see if it's good or bad. I think we as a council have discussed this over and over, that staff has put lots of dollars into looking at it. The only way I could change my mind with all the discussion we've had is to put it to the voters. I'm not here to tell you what I like or what I want in my backyard. It doesn't make any difference to me. It's only been 5 months since we've had this long discussion. And true, Joseph was not on council, but he heard all of the discussion. And the 5 of us all agreed to a moratorium, I thought.
Well, we had to do the moratorium because if we didn't, we had nothing in place.
But
I was forced to vote yes in favor of it because we had nothing in place.
We could have voted yes to have dispensaries.
No, we wouldn't have had time to.
Well, that would have been irresponsible.
It's only been 5 months, and what does it cost us so far? That's the main thing I care about.
Can I respond to both those?
Yeah.
You know, one thing on the survey, if you ask most people, do they want somewhere for people to live that maybe it might be impoverished or otherwise it's in low-income housing in their neighborhood or in their city?
Not in my backyard.
And the answer is not in my backyard. And I think this survey is a big representation of not in my backyard. So if you ask the question of, well, would you be okay with it if it was in the industrial park, only in a small part of your city, only in one particular area, and it was well regulated and well taken care of and made to look, as Dustin said, the damn Apple store of dispensaries. Would you be okay with that?
Vote me.
And I think that the percentage is highly different. And we didn't ask those types of questions. And I feel that very strongly that the way the question was asked it was very much leaning towards a NIMBYism type of feel for most of our voters. So, and yes, I do generally agree with FPM research, but I don't believe that, and I remember talking with them and hearing from them, and they basically said, we can do a quick little couple questions on that, but that's not the focus of the survey. The focus of the survey, the other 52 questions, I forget what the number was, but, the majority of that survey, not the majority, the vast majority was on the taxes, and it was on the taxation, it was on the question of the polling. We did not get into anywhere near the depth of a survey. So I feel that that's slightly flawed. The other thing is going to the voters, in my opinion, especially if you went to the voters with an ordinance. The problem you run into there, and I've seen this in other cities, and you see it right now playing out in the newspapers in San Bernardino, is that when you go to the voters, once the voters have spoken, that's it. And that's a great thing. It's a beautiful thing, but that's it. The council can't change anything. That ordinance becomes the law and the will of the voters. And the council has no ability to change it. I don't think it'd be a good thing for us to move forward, put it on the ballot in 2020, and then for the next 5 people that's up here, or all 5 of us if we're here, hopefully, that to be sitting there and not be able to change it. I would hope that we would be able to modify it if we saw a problem with it. If we saw one pop up that wasn't the best damn Apple store of the dispensaries,
Thank you.
then we'd want to make that change and figure out what went wrong with our ordinance to fix that. So I understand your feeling of not wanting to just do this on our own, but you know what? That's why there's 5 of us. And I think that's why it takes 5 of us to move or not move forward with this. And I feel that at some point that we need to go ahead and take a vote, and we'll see where this goes.
I just feel like we've talked this up one side and down the other for months and months and months. You see all the dates, we've talked about it. We've tried to see how this city's doing, how that city is doing. I just feel like staff and myself and you and all of us have spent too much time talking on this. If the voters want it here, the question can be written any way you want, that it can only be in whatever zone or however you feel would be the best way to do it. But I do have confidence in this survey being that AA passed. It didn't pass as high as they said it would. I agree, but it passed easily. Mm-hmm. And we are paying that tax. And I'm not against marijuana or dispensaries, either one. I'm against spending all the time we've spent looking at this and staff time and money trying to figure out what we're going to do with it.
Well, then I think we take a vote tonight to move forward or not move forward.
Well, how much more are you wanting to spend on it? I mean, say it moves forward.
I think that's a process of going through the process.
Tom, if there is an ordinance and there is a vote on it, can that ordinance be modified? I mean, if there's just a question of, are you okay with marijuana dispensaries in industrial zone? Well, that's pretty open.
More of a poll.
I don't know how you would phrase it, that it would limit where it was going to be, or just the question, do you want them here, period? Can future councils modify that ordinance like we modify other ordinances?
Question.
Yeah, you can do what's called just an advisory ballot measure, where you're not presenting an ordinance to the voters, but just kind of an advisory, non-binding advisory question. That is an option that some communities have used. If you present an ordinance to the voters and the voters approve that ordinance, then it can only be changed by the voters.
So, but the question could be there. And Gary, what would it cost to put that question on the ballot? Approximately.
$20,000 to $30,000.
And what have we spent so far? Staff time, survey time?
Well, on this survey,
Yeah, well, just in general. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on this, and I know you guys have.
I'd say close to 100.
Gary, was this the question right here? This is on this form?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to, because Ben feels that maybe they didn't understand. So this is the question that people were asked, and I think the voters would have understood it and answered how they really felt. Voters in California and the city of Wildomar approved Proposition 64 last year, allowing for the recreational use of marijuana and empowering cities to establish local cannabis regulations. Proposition 64 also gave cities the choice as to whether to allow commercial cannabis businesses to operate in their cities, something the city of Wildomar is currently considering. 55% opposed it. So I think the voters, when they were asked the question, understood what they were being asked and responded the way they wanted.
I won't disagree with that.
Okay. I will entertain a motion, a question,
And 52.9% of the registered voters, when it came before Prop 64, voted for it.
well,
That was
I
for all
voted
the
for it. I
the
didn't
state.
vote for a dispensary, though.
That was, do you want the state? Do you agree that it should be
State.
legalized in the state of California?
I-
52.9. Then they asked you, do you want it in the city of Wildomar? And
Correct.
55 said no.
So the problem I have, again, with those questions even being asked in the first place is we were elected to make decisions that we feel are best for the community. And it's a representative type situation where I could fall on my sword right now, and in 2020, George Taylor could be sitting up here because it was the wrong decision. I'll stand by that, but if it's...
But Dustin, you were elected to represent the people, not your personal feelings.
Oh, I know, I get
The
it.
people's feelings in your
District 2
area
makes this
or...
easy.
Yes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Dustin on this about the,
It's not how I feel or how any individual
but-
up here feels.
No, I agree.
we end up doing, we're districts in the last couple of years, and so maybe that's one reason why we still talk about districts, and then on the other side, I'm sorry, we still talk about, well, we're one city, and we don't like districts. This is not a district issue. A district issue would be something in your district. This is a citywide issue.
But add all the
and-
numbers together.
No,
Add
true,
the
but
whole
this
city
is a
together.
citywide issue, and so if it turns out that the survey, which says 60% in District 3, if it turns out I rerun in 2022, and they go, you know what, I have a long memory, and you're out. Okay, well, then that's how that goes.
There's
But-
cultures up. So look at AOC in Brooklyn, right? She's a representative of the people of Brooklyn right there. I'm a representative of District 2 because I culturally align with those people. I have to, and that's just the way. That's the reality of it.
Right. Right, I get that, yeah. So, we're voted in to make these decisions, and we know that, I don't think that, I'm sorry, I reject the 55 opposed, that based on the way that it was done. But I'm willing to, it's 35 and 35 with the other 40 in the middle, or is it 30? So, that you're going to make mad 35% no matter what you say. And then there's people in the middle that don't care. So
So it may be a voter's question.
that would be, I can understand that, except for we've got other cities around us that obviously they've.
We're not other
forward.
cities.
Well,
We're
we can look
Wildomar.
to see what the precedence is in other areas.
Well,
It's not.
Well, I'm still looking for a motion.
We do run into the issue also
Anybody's
of we
done discussing.
contract with RSO, and the point that was made earlier, and I forgot by who, and you're not wrong. We border a city, right? This is not part of the calculus with it, but it's more of a reality of the situation. One city has it legalized, right? I can't expect these, and this is our fault. We contract with RSO.
We all have it legalized. We don't all have dispensaries.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at.
yeah.
So we have a city that has dispensaries and one that doesn't. The police officer that patrols both sides of the city, or maybe works in Elsinore 3 days out of the week and Wildomar the other 2, they're gonna follow the least restrictive law, and they're gonna make a point to know those and enforce those. I just don't think it's realistic for us to expect any officer to be looking at the border and waiting for somebody to cross the street to go wrap somebody up. That's not going to happen either. I would make a motion, and this is from the top of my head, to direct staff to present us an ordinance that takes into account cost to us, stipulating security cameras, etc., and is done smartly. It's vague and ambiguous. I know, and I'll tell you why.
Dustin,
I think I need a
cannot
clear,
cost us
concise
money.
motion.
Well, it can't cost us money.
can I make
throw in,
maybe a different suggestion for your motion?
Sure, go ahead.
You know, there are many, many details. Security cameras and security are just one of them. There are
Yeah.
many details of, do we want dispensaries, grows, laboratories? These are all different facets, the manufacturing. I would feel better if tonight if whoever wants to make the motion, we make a motion.
Give direction.
Staff, yes, we want to move forward. We're not sure with which of the 3 major things, manufacturing, dispensaries, or unless there's 3 people that want to move forward with dispensaries, manufacturing, and with the laboratories.
What about a subcommittee ahead of time or as part of that?
I'm getting there. And that a subcommittee be assigned or enacted that can work on the minute details and get into the finite details of all 3 of those subcategories. And that the subcommittee work with staff to put together an ordinance to bring back to the full council at some future time.
And do you think that right now is the time, or waiting?
It's going to take, my guess would be, this took the county almost, Gina, you were there, 12 months, maybe more. It took Elsinore probably about 8 to 10 months. I think we can do it a little bit faster, only because we can look to Elsinore.
County's done it, Elsinore's done it, yeah. We can.
So I think there's a little bit of headroom, but it's still going to be at least 6 to 8 months before I think we get back to where we're voting on that ordinance.
That all is going to take time.
Absolutely. It's going to take
So how
time,
much
it's going
are
to take
you
money,
willing
it's
to
going to take
spend?
energy.
So we always talk, our major complaint we receive right now is potholes and roads. And we don't have enough money to fix that. So now we're going to spend another $100,000 on maybe having marijuana in the city when can it just be delivered to you? It could just be delivered to your house.
Well, it's not legal.
Yes, it is. We can't do anything with deliveries.
Absolutely, yeah, we can.
They can deliver.
They changed the law.
Of course, the infamous they.
Deliveries.
I know.
There's nothing we can do about deliveries.
So that'd be my recommendation.
Create a subcommittee.
Create a subcommittee and work towards
Bring us
bringing
something
an
back,
ordinance.
along with the guidance of the subcommittee in 6 to 8 months,
Well, or sooner.
or sooner.
Is there a cost?
So that would be, well, the cost would be staff time and our personal time, who's ever on the subcommittee.
So how much are you willing to spend?
Well, we spend money on things, I can tell you, that I would say this is at least an issue that is worth spending money on. I'm not going to give the dollar amount. I'm not being paid for that, and we're paying Gary for that. But we're going to give the intent, assuming there's a vote in favor or against, and then we'll move forward.
Do you want to put a ballpark out there, Gary, of what that would cost to do that, the high and the low? Okay.
6 to 8 months of attorney fees, 6 to 8 months of attorney fees.
Okay, well, what's that? Is that 50 cents?
I think with the subcommittee, we can go ahead and scope out the scope of work, and then we can dollarize that, and then we can get an idea of what this is going to entail, and how much we want to spend and how fast we want to go. That would be my recommendation for that.
Yeah.
And if it's, the beautiful thing about the public industry is everything's public.
Right.
So we can borrow the public experiences from the other agencies.
Yep.
Which shouldn't cost Tom a whole lot.
don't know. Tom like.
I'm not worried about Tom, it's us.
Copying
Tom's on our
documents.
team. He's not going to charge us anything. We're good. Right, Tom?
He's under the retainer, right?
No.
All right, so a motion to create a subcommittee with the intent of working towards the city allowing dispensaries, cultivation, and what was the last piece?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing.
That's under
cannabis.
manufacturing, I think. Yeah. It's not, is it 4 categories?
With the intent to bring it back in 6 to 8 months or less.
In formation of a subcommittee
Yes.
at on a future agenda?
Well, that's not on the agenda, so we can't do that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
You could.
So I would say future agenda like next month or something.
Sure,
Yeah, okay.
just to select the members of
Yeah.
the subcommittee.
Okay, do I need to repeat that? Or can somebody just second that?
So, within 4 to 6 weeks, go ahead.
Months.
Yeah,
Months,
some
Gary.
months. Within 4 to 6.
I couldn't ask you to do that in 4 to 6 weeks. Come on, really?
So we're going to create an ordinance allowing dispensaries, cultivation, manufacturing, and was it testing?
Yeah.
In a 6 to 8 month time period. And prior to that, we're going to establish a subcommittee. We'll bring that back at the June 12th city council meeting. Bring that open for discussion for you to go ahead and make your appointments for that.
I would ask.
Is that,
Does that sound right? And
Yeah,
I would also add on that we're looking towards Elsinore's and the county's ordinance as examples.
Yeah.
Just so we have a basis for staff to start looking at.
So my concern is the laboratory piece, the manufacturing piece, the cultivation piece. I'd like to leave it to the subcommittee to make those recommendations.
Sure.
And we're not be tied to that. You know, if the subcommittee decides manufacturing is out and it don't make sense, I'd like for them to be able to scratch that. Is that fair?
yes.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Here we go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Opposed?
I can't believe that just happened.
Motion carries 3-2 with Councilwoman Moore and Mayor Swanson voting no.
Okay.